Hiya, gang. Come on in, take a load off, because today I will be taking a first look and paging through Runequest, role playing in Glorantha. Yes, the latest edition of Runequest from Chaosium Inc. So, why not just pull up a chair, relax, and let's get down to it? Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host. Welcome aboard, because today I'm excited to take my first look at the latest edition of RuneQuest role playing in Glorantha. This is a game that I go way back with, although it has been a long, long time since I've actually paged through any more recent RuneQuest releases or editions, but I had RuneQuest way back in the day. In fact, it was the second role playing game I ever purchased after Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And I have to say, it blew my mind. I think, if memory serves me correctly, I think it was the second edition that I had picked up because it came in that 1 inch box that Chaosium was famous for. And it is probably one of the most beloved role playing game systems that is out there. So, without further ado, RuneQuest role playing in Glorantha, as I mentioned, is from Chaosium Inc. It's written by the late Greg Stafford, Jeff Richard, Jason Durrell, and Steve Perrin, with artwork provided by, and I apologize, I'm sure I'm going to get plenty of these people's names wrong, but Rick Becker, Bernard Bittler, Simon Bray, William Church, Miguel Coronado, Gene Day, Andrei Fedosov, Peter Folksovics, Lisa Free, Merle Insignia, Tomaz Jedruzik, Kaylin Kadiev, Roman Kisyov, Rachel Kahn, Jennifer Lang, Rhonda Libby, Michelle Lockamy, and you. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's Juh. The 445-page hardcover is available from Chaosium for $54.95, and it's also available in PDF from my friends over at DriveThruRPG for $27.95. So let's move on over to the other camera, because I've got RuneQuest role playing in Glorantha in all its glory right here in front of us. So let's jump right on in, because I have heard wonderful things about this new edition. So let's take a look. So originally, RuneQuest came out, late 70s, and the game design itself, the mechanics, were written by Steve Perrin, and it was based in Greg Stafford's Glorantha, which, if you are familiar with role playing games, then you already know that Glorantha is probably the most detailed role playing uh, setting and universe ever. Greg Stafford was working on Glorantha for over 40 years. So, really nice quality book. I can tell you right now, really nice page and paper quality. So, we've got kind of an explanation, kind of setting the scene for kind of the history of RuneQuest. If I remember right, I think it originally came out in 1978. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't know that much about the difference between the first two editions. I'm not sure if the first edition came out in a box set, because it is possible that I had the first edition and not the second. So we're going to dive into the world of Glorantha. So that's going to set the scene for us. And I do want to point out that there is some adult artwork. I mean, it's not crazy, but some of the kind of religious kind of iconography and things like that kind of harken back to kind of almost like prehistory. Do want to mention that the setting is kind of a Bronze Age. So you have a kind of Bronze Age technology. RuneQuest is not a really heavy magically driven setting. There is magic. I don't want to say it's like magic light or anything like that, or just like light fantasy. But this does have a more realistic kind of setting. Whereas if you really get into all the details about Glorantha, if you really dive into the whole background, it has a very realistic feel to it. That the history of the setting could actually be a real world's history. So pretty sweet. So we're getting into looks like the character creation. So you've got your kind of traditional attributes as far as the role playing game strength and dexterity and constitution. I will point out that there are no such things as specific magic users and fighters. There's no real classes. There are archetypes, but there are not classes. So you can have just about anybody utilize magic. There are different schools of magic as well. I am not sure what they may have done as far as the actual magic system, because I remember there used to be different schools of magic. I am assuming that that's probably still the case. I do believe that this newest edition is kind of based on second edition Runequest, which is before it actually went over to Avalon Hill. And Avalon Hill published Runequest for a few years with the third edition. So we've got some occupations, talking about different occupations, kind of giving you an idea of the different skills. As I mentioned, more of kind of a realistic feel and look to the type of characters. As I mentioned, it's more like a Bronze Age. So we've got some of the various different archetypes that you can choose from. RuneQuest is a skill-based game. It is a D100 percentile-based game as well. So one of the aspects of creating your character is your cult, which is simply your religion. It's the religion that you belong to. There's actually various different cultures you can belong to as well. So we're talking about here personal skill bonuses, sex and marriage. So I do point out that RuneQuest is more aimed towards more mature role players, not necessarily because we have some artwork that shows like bare breasts, but simply because it's not necessarily like a dungeon delving kind of Monty Hallism as we used to call it. It's not hack and slash bunch of murder hobos. There's um, there's excitement, there's action. It's just not necessarily a Dungeons and Dragons kind of Pathfinder sort of game. You're not going to sit there and have all these different elves and dwarves and demons and all these other things that you would find in, say, a D&D or a Pathfinder. That said, there are plenty of mysterious creatures and monsters. There are various different races as well, different cultures. So here we're talking about the homelands. Homelands of Dragon Pass. Dragon Pass was one of the first board games that Greg Stafford actually had created with Glorantha as a background. So here we're going through various different lands as well as the different religions that these people would worship, the different cultures. Really love the cartography. That is a really sweet looking map. That is really really nice. So another thing about RuneQuest that you'll notice is there's going to be a lot of politics. There are these different cultures are all pretty, I don't want to say radically different, but they are pretty damn different. So, and of course, they kind of rub up against each other. So there is conflict. There's kind of an empire, if I remember correctly, because it has been so long. If I remember correctly, there's one culture that is kind of technologically advanced, but they're also almost like the evil empire. So, like the artwork too. This artwork's very cool. So we're even getting information about weather in these different regions. So that's pretty sweet. I like that. So we have a map of the Dragon Pass here. Now we start getting into the game system. So we're 137 pages in before we actually start getting into the mechanics of Runequest. And mechanically, I always found at least second edition Runequest to be pretty easy to jump into, especially as a player. Essentially, you're rolling percentile dice to succeed. And of course, you're looking to roll under your skill. We will get into combat, and I will talk about combat as far as I recall in RuneQuest. So abilities over 100%. The resistance table. Yes, the good old resistance table, which was in pretty much every Chaosium role-playing game. Although the latest edition of Call of Cthulhu did away with the resistance table. We have death and permanent damage, healing, resurrection. Talking about chases. So as you can see, there aren't a ton of pages regarding the rules to the game. Very cool. All right, now we get into skills. As I mentioned before, it's percentile based. So if you have a skill of 0, that means that you have absolutely no chance of actually successfully performing that skill. So it's broken down into different areas as well. So we've got agility skills. Oh, cool. We got a nice little bookmark. Sweet. Communication skills. If anyone out there is not familiar with RuneQuest, but they are familiar with previous editions of Call of Cthulhu, in fact, even the most recent edition, a lot of this stuff is going to look pretty familiar because Call of Cthulhu actually was based on RuneQuest's mechanics. Now it's pretty much referred to as basic role playing, is kind of the generic system or generic set. Well, I should say source book that is available from Chaosium. So we can see we've got all these different skills, perception skills and stealth skills. Now we get into combat. And combat is very deadly in RuneQuest. You can easily be taken out by just one hit. And the reason behind that is you don't have dozens upon dozens of hit points. You only have a handful of hit points. And as your character gets better, it's not as if they gain more and more hit points. This was the first game system that I recall ever seeing where as you got better, as your character got better, you didn't get more and more hit points, or as people like to joke around, meat points. So we've got critical hits. As you can see, we've got fumbles here. Got the various different weapons. Got some explanations, some stats for those weapons as well. As far as hitting, if you roll your skill with whatever modifiers and you hit, the target has a chance to either dodge or possibly parry the blow. There is armor as well, and the armor types are all by location. As long as if they haven't changed things, used to always be armor by location, so you could have various different cuirasses and shields and things like that. I don't know, maybe that's not the case in this newer edition here. Oh, well, here we have hit locations, yeah. So I was going to say, another aspect of RuneQuest was the hit locations. So did I somehow just swing on past the hit location chart? Maybe did. No, I don't know. Okay, then we get into runes, and runes is where we start getting into the magic. So we've got runic magic, inspirations, and we've got passions and reputation. And as we can see, we've got these sidebars here that are they're kind of walking us through the story of a character, which I seem to recall previous editions did the same exact thing. Now we get into actual magic. So yes, there we go. So we've got different schools. So we've got the spirit magic, rune magic, sorcery. Talking about magic points. Once again, there is not a Vancian sort of magic system, which you see like Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons utilize, whereas you would cast a spell and then it's gone. Runequest uses magic points, so you have a certain amount of magic points that you can use, and then once it's been depleted, you have to wait till you get your magic points back. So it's not a system where you're just gonna be tossing magic spells nonstop everywhere. So we got some of the different spells here. Looks like we got a good number of spells from that school for spirit magic. Then we get the rune cults. Wow, this is a really nice book. This is very very cool. So now we've got different spirits, and this is kind of more like the runes are. If I remember right, runes are almost along the lines of like clerical magic. Let's see, we see a rune lord, and again, like I said, I'm just kind of accessing my memory banks here, so I might be way out of line. I could have swore that I seem to recall that like the runes are more along the lines of like shamans and priests and things like that with that kind of magic. Those kind of like rituals. So we're going through all the different looks like different religions once again, and how they tie into the runes. So we have all the various artwork of the different deities. As I mentioned earlier, the actual game world is just amazing. Just what the work that Greg Stafford put into Glorantha is just it's phenomenal. And you have to keep in mind, Greg Stafford designed other games as well. Pendragon, which is the Age of King Arthur, is a fantastic classic role playing game as well. And just think, I mean, just how talented Greg Stafford must have been to have been working on so many different role playing games and other projects, and that they came out just so wonderfully well done. So we're going through the rune magic here. So we've got all the different rune magic spells. As you can see, we haven't gotten into anything regarding like the game master just yet. So here we have the shamans. So now we've got shamanic or shamanic abilities. We've got the spirit world. Well, that's pretty cool. I like that artwork there. That's pretty nicely done. Regions of the spirit world, mapping the middle world to the spirit world. Spirit cults. Then we get into sorcery. But one of the aspects of RuneQuest I always thought was really cool was that you don't have a particular class. So in most role playing games, and this unfortunately, as far as like fantasy role playing games, it's kind of baked into the whole system. Whereas Magic users get more powerful, the game becomes more unbalanced. So characters who are focused more on like fighting or even rogues, they kind of get left behind. They get left in the dust by the magic users because the magic users are becoming very, very powerful. That's not the case in RuneQuest because every character is going to have the ability to utilize magic. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they will, but you're not sitting there saying, okay, well, I'm a wizard. And of course, because I'm a wizard, my combat abilities are going to suffer. No, that's not the case here. So we've got between adventures. So it's talking a little bit about downtime. As far as increasing your skills, I'm sure things are probably about the same as they were before. Whereas you just roll your percentile dice after your adventure or whenever your game master has decided you have an opportunity to improve your character. And normally it'd be if you would utilize the skill successfully in the course of the adventure, which actually meant something. You couldn't just roll skills just to pass skill checks. You would actually check your box, which it looks like we've got the same thing here. And as long as you roll your percentile dice and you roll higher than your current skill, then you would be able to increase your skill. And it used to be, if I remember correctly, it was a D10. You could roll a D10, and whatever you rolled is what you got to add to your skill. So characters could conceivably actually kind of improve relatively quickly, although it wasn't like they were suddenly going to go from being, let's say, as an example, Bilbo Baggins in the beginning of The Hobbit to being Aragorn at the end of Return of the King. So it's not you're not going to like improve yourself super fast, but you actually would see through your adventuring the improvements that were made in your character. All right, so we get into the index. Of course, we had the character sheets here. So looks like we got 4 pages for your character sheet. Most of your information is going to be on these 2 pages here. There's looks like there's a little bit more to the character sheets than it used to be way back in the day. Because way back in the day, I believe it was just most of this information was on the front, and then on the back was more along the lines of where you added your background and things like that. But here we've got like a family history, different events. So that's pretty cool. Then we got a conversion guide for other editions of RuneQuest. So it looks like this is showing 2nd and 3rd editions. So I want to say classic. I was going to say, I want to say 2nd edition is actually available through Chaosium. They call it Classic RuneQuest. In fact, they did a Kickstarter not all that long ago to bring a hardcover of it. So we've also got the guide to Glorantha, which is going to be jam-packed with. In fact, it's if I remember correctly, I think the guide to Glorantha is a 2-volume set. And of course, there are some other new releases for RuneQuest as well, or at least more recent releases since this new edition came out. And of course, we get an ad for Call of Cthulhu, my favorite role-playing game that I have run for decades. All right, so there you have it. And then we've got a nice end page here with the city of Boldholm. Very cool, very nice. And that is RuneQuest Role-Playing in Glorantha, taking a first look and paging through. That is a pretty impressive book, I must say. And of course, I will have a review of the new edition, or newest edition of RuneQuest in the very near future. So, as I mentioned before, it is available in hardcover from Chaosium Inc. for $54.95. It's also available in PDF from my friends over at DriveThruRPG for $27.95. That said, do want to mention that the Gaming Gang is an affiliate of the One Bookshelf sites. So, if you are going to go over to DriveThruRPG, please head over to thegaminggang.com first, click on one of our banners, and that way, if you do make a purchase, I get a small piece of that pie, and that helps keep the Gaming Gang and my weekday live show, The Daily Dope, around and kicking. So there you have it for this time out. Don't forget to catch me live right here on YouTube Mondays through Fridays at 7 p.m. Central with the Daily Dope. And as I like to always point out, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, and you should subscribe to the channel if you haven't, but when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, by all means, visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. By now, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. I will be back again. And until then, happy trails. If you're ready for some more fun and you'd like to check out the latest episode of The Daily Dope, my live Monday through Friday show that airs at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube, click right here. And if you'd like to roll the dice and push your luck and see a randomly selected video from the channel, click right here. You pays your money, you takes your chances. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and thank you for watching.